Today, we're going to talk about one of the most incredible stories in all of medicine, how surgery went from being this brutal, terrifying last-ditch effort to the incredibly precise, life-saving science we know today. And to really get how far we've come, you have to go back to a time when the operating room was, frankly, a place of absolute terror. Now, just let that sink in for a second. It sounds totally backwards, right? But before the middle of the 19th century, this was the cold, hard reality. There was no way to stop a patient's pain, so the only mercy a surgeon could offer was speed. Every single operation was just a frantic, bloody race against time. So, what was it actually like? I mean, to be a patient back then? Let's just step into that world for a moment. A world where going under the knife was a true gamble, with your life hanging in the balance. It was really a perfect storm of horrors. The most common operation? Amputation. And it was done without anything to numb the pain. But even if you could somehow survive that agony, an invisible killer was waiting for you. Surgeons had no clue about germs. In fact, they wore their blood-caked coats almost like a badge of honor. So infection wasn't just a risk, it was basically a given. And that's exactly why surgery was stuck on the body's surface. Going any deeper was pretty much a death sentence. But then, in just a few short decades, absolutely everything changed. Two massive breakthroughs. Conquering pain and understanding infection became the two pillars that hold up all of modern surgery. The first pillar, anesthesia, changed the game overnight. I mean, the entire goal of surgery shifted. The mad dash for speed was suddenly replaced by a demand for precision. With a patient finally still and not in agony, surgeons could take their time. They could perform complex, delicate procedures that were literally the stuff of dreams before. Now, that second pillar, that one required a total rewiring of how people thought. For centuries, nobody knew why people got sick after surgery. Then, this guy Louis Pasteur comes along with his germ theory and reveals the invisible enemy, microbes. This led to the first phase, antisepsis, basically spraying chemicals everywhere to kill the germs already in the room. But the real revolution was asepsis, sterilizing everything to stop germs from ever getting in the first place. That shift from killing to preventing is what saved countless lives. Okay, so you've solved pain and you've solved infection. What happens next? Well, the doors to the human body were basically thrown wide open. Surgeons could finally, safely, explore the abdomen, the chest, even the brain, places that had always been completely off limits. And the progress was just immediate and astounding. You had pioneers like Christian Billroth, who started doing abdominal surgeries, turning something like a bleeding ulcer from a certain death sentence into a solvable problem. Up in Glasgow, Sir William McSewan wasn't just doing the first ever brain surgeries. He was also figuring out how to operate on bone diseases. The whole world of surgery was just exploding with possibilities. So the next big jump wasn't just about fixing what was already there. It was about something way more audacious. Actually rebuilding and even replacing parts of the human body itself. During World War I, a surgeon named Harold Gillies was faced with these horrific facial injuries on soldiers. His solution was nothing short of genius. Look at this. He would take a flap of skin, maybe from the arm, and this is the key, he'd leave one end still attached to its blood supply. Then he'd swing the free end over and sew it onto the face. After a few weeks, once a new blood supply from the face grew into the flap, only then would he snip it free from the arm. This technique was basically the birth of modern plastic surgery. But if you're going to start swapping whole organs, you run into a huge new problem, your own body. It's called immune rejection. Your body's defense system is incredibly good at its job. It sees a new organ, identifies it as a foreign invader, and just launches an all-out war to destroy it. For a long, long time, this biological wall seemed impossible to climb. So how did we finally figure out what was going on? A scientist named Peter Medawar performed this brilliant experiment. As you can see here, a first skin graft on an animal was rejected in about 10 days. But then, when he applied a second graft from the exact same donor, it was rejected instantly. That was the proof. The immune system had a memory. It recognized the foreign tissue and attacked right away. Medawar had found the culprit. Okay, so we knew the who, but you still needed the how. You needed the right tools. Joseph Murray perfected the incredibly delicate technique of sewing tiny blood vessels together. Wilhelm Kolff invented the dialysis machine, which could keep patients alive while their new kidney got up and running. And then, in 1954, Murray put all the pieces together.
He performed the first successful transplant ever between identical twins, whose identical DNA meant there was no immune rejection to fight.
For the rest of us without an identical twin, the answer came from the pharmacy. And believe it or not, the big breakthrough came from leukemia drugs. See, those drugs worked by stopping cancer cells from dividing so quickly. Well, it turns out they could also stop the immune cells from dividing to attack a new organ. By basically telling the body's own defense system to just take a break, surgeons could finally protect the transplant. This is what blew the doors open for things like heart and liver transplants to become possible. And surgery wasn't just about biological parts anymore. We were now in the age of engineering. Sir John Charnley completely changed the lives of millions of people suffering from arthritis with his artificial hip. And his genius was really in three key innovations: a new low-friction design that let it move smoothly, a powerful acrylic cement that locked it right onto the bone, and a super durable plastic surface that wouldn't wear out. It was a staggering success. It gave people their lives back.
All right, this brings us to the final frontier, the big one, the human heart. For surgeons, this was the ultimate challenge. It's an organ that, if you stop it, your patient dies instantly. Operating on it just seemed impossible. This quote really says it all. It captures the sheer awe and fear that surgeons had for the heart. It was the one part of the body you just did not mess with. Early heart operations were all done on the outside, on the major blood vessels, but the heart itself, it was sacred, untouchable ground. The solution was the heart-lung machine, a truly mind-bending invention pioneered by John Gibbon. It was so clever. As you can see here, it basically takes the patient's blood out of the body, does the lungs' job of putting oxygen in, then does the heart's job of pumping that fresh blood back through the body. And for the first time, surgeons had what they had always dreamed of: a completely still, empty heart that they could actually repair. Open heart surgery was now a reality.
So, think about that journey. In a little over a century, we went from frantic, bloody amputations to replacing hips, transplanting organs, and literally stopping and restarting the human heart. It's an almost unbelievable story. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? After all of that, what impossible challenge will surgery solve next?